let me tell you about Korede. And I need you to understand something first. This is not a sad story. It just starts like one. Korede was 12 years old when he watched his mother collapse in the kitchen on a Tuesday morning. Not a dramatic fall, she just folded quietly like paper. And something in Korede folded with her. She survived. A stroke, the doctor said. She would need time. But Korede stopped speaking. Not because he physically could not. The doctors checked everything. His throat, his brain, his ears, all functioning, all perfectly intact. He simply decided, somewhere in the shock of that Tuesday morning, that words were dangerous things. That maybe if he had said something sooner, called for help sooner, used his voice sooner, the morning would have gone differently. So he kept it, locked it away like something precious he was afraid to break again. His father handled it the way men from their town handled things they did not understand. He pretended nothing had changed and spoke loudly to fill the silence, as if volume could compensate for what his son was no longer offering. His teachers were kind for the first month. Then they became frustrated. Then they gave up and started directing questions to the student next to Korede instead. His classmates were curious for a week. Then they found it boring. Then they found it useful. They started calling him Ghost. Not cruelly at first, the way children name things without thinking about the weight of words. Then cruelly, the way children learn to use whatever works. His mother recovered slowly. She came home with a slight drag in her left foot and a speech that was different now, slower, searching for words the way you search for something in a dark room. When she first saw Korede's silence, she did not panic. She sat across from him at the kitchen table and said in her new careful voice, "I am not gone. I am still here, and I can wait." He did not speak, but he also did not leave the table, which was something. 2 years passed. By 14, Korede had built an entire language without words. He carried a small notebook everywhere. He communicated in writing, in gestures, in expressions so precise that his mother could read him like a page. He had also, in the silence that everyone else found uncomfortable, discovered something. He could draw. Not just draw, render. Pull things out of thin air and place them on paper with a fidelity that made people stop walking when they passed his desk at school. Faces with entire histories behind the eyes. Landscapes that felt like memory. He drew his mother the way he saw her. Not diminished by the stroke, but somehow distilled by it. Something essential and undefeatable sitting in the lines of her face. She cried when he showed her. He handed her a tissue from the counter and looked away to give her privacy, which she always said was one of the most grown things a 14-year-old had ever done for her. A new art teacher arrived at his school that year, Mr. Adeze. Young, loud, from somewhere in the southeast, with paint perpetually on his forearms and an opinion about everything. He looked at Korede's work for exactly 45 seconds. Then he looked at Korede. "You are wasting paper," he said. Korede stared at him. "This should be canvas. This should be large. Why are you hiding this in a notebook?" He was the first person who did not ask why Korede didn't speak. He simply spoke to him directly, waited for the notebook response, read it, and continued the conversation without making the silence itself the subject of every interaction. To Mr. Adeze, the silence was just a detail. The work was the point. He entered Korede's piece in a regional youth arts competition without telling him first. Korede found out when the letter arrived at his home. He wrote in his notebook, in capital letters, and showed it to Mr. Adeze. "You did not ask me." "No," Mr. Adeze said, entirely unbothered. "Would you have said yes?" Korede paused, then wrote, "No." "Exactly," Mr. Adeze said. "That is why I did not ask." The piece was a large-scale portrait of his mother. He had finally transferred it from notebook to canvas over 3 weeks of lunch breaks. It showed her at the kitchen table, the morning light doing something complicated across her face, her left hand resting flat on the wood, her eyes looking at something just past the viewer. In the corner, barely visible, a small boy's hands holding a glass of water he had not yet carried to her. He did not win first place. He won something more inconvenient. A judge, a woman who ran a prominent gallery in Abuja, photographed the piece on her phone and posted it that night with 3 words: "Find this artist." The internet, when it decides to care about something, is thorough. By the following morning, the post had been shared 11,000 times. By the afternoon, someone had identified the school. By evening, a journalist had called the front office. Korede's father showed him the phone. Korede looked at the numbers. Then he looked at his father. Something moved across his father's face, something that had been stuck there for 2 years, some log jam of helplessness and love that had nowhere to go. It shifted. "Son," his father said, and his voice did something embarrassing that fathers' voices are not supposed to do. "I think people want to hear from you." Korede took the phone. He looked at the comments for a long time. Hundreds of strangers describing what the painting made them feel. A woman who said she had not called her mother in 3 years and had just dialed the number. A man who said he had been sitting in a hospital waiting room for 6 hours and the image had given him something he could not name but needed. He read every single comment. Then he picked up his notebook. He wrote 1 sentence, tore the page out, and handed it to his father. "I think I am ready to try." The gallery show in Abuja was arranged for 6 months later. 20 pieces, all of them large, all of them portraits of people in his life, rendered with the kind of honesty that made subjects both uncomfortable and grateful. His mother, his father in a rare unguarded moment. Mr. Adeze with paint on his forearms made argument. A classmate who once called him Ghost, painted with such unexpected tenderness that the boy stood in front of it at the opening for almost 10 minutes without speaking. The gallery was full. At the end of the night, the curator brought a microphone to Korede. "Would you like to say anything?" The room went quiet. Korede stood at 16 years old in front of more people than had ever looked at him at one time. People who had come specifically because of something he had made, specifically because of what had lived in his silence. He took the microphone. He thought about his mother folding in the kitchen, about the notebook, about Mr. Adeze entering work without asking, about a stranger calling her mother because of something he had painted. He thought about everything he had been holding. Then Korede spoke. His voice came out rough from disuse, slightly uncertain like something learning to walk, but it came. He said, "I stopped talking because I was afraid of what words could not fix, but I think maybe I have found what words are not the only language for." He paused. "Thank you for coming to see what I made in the quiet." His mother was in the front row. She did not look fragile. She looked like the painting, like something essential and undefeatable. She put her hand over her heart. He put his over his. Years later, when journalists asked Korede what had brought him back, he would think carefully before answering, because the honest answer was not one thing. It was his mother staying at the table, a teacher who did not make the silence the whole story, strangers who saw something real and told him so, and a boy who learned that when you cannot speak your pain, sometimes you paint it, and sometimes the painting speaks so clearly that eventually the boy can too.